of true concern. When the change happens out of true concern, understanding, compassion, then when change does happen, sometimes it takes more time, but when change does happen, it's much more lasting, better solutions. And so I think that is, sometimes I think we lose bigger pictures. We get kind of, caught up in a immediate result, instead of trying to solve long-term result and better result. So, I would say that, like, for example, when you have differences on whatever, political differences or spiritual differences or whatever, different, when there is no anger or less anger towards each other, when there is more respect to each other, when there is more compassion to each other, we are able to find solutions better. Even we don't agree with it, we will be able to, both is willing to kind of compromise some way to find the solutions, because we feel that you do not dislike me or have anger and hatred me. It is just that we have different view, different ideas, and that you actually respect me and my view as well. Even though you don't agree with that, but you respect me, my view. Therefore, I also respect your view. And with that kind of feeling, there is a possibility, better environment to find better solutions, to find some kind of compromise. On the other side, when there's anger directed towards the others, and when the others feel that anger, they don't want to find any solution. They don't want to find any compromise. It's my way or your way. And so again, that is sometimes that is why I feel like at this point, this is where this country is going. The reason why the government is not functioning so well is because there's so much anger. There's so much anger with each other, not only on government officials, but also the citizens themselves, depending on, politically which party you belong. It's not just about having a different views. It's not just about having a different view, different ideas, how to run the countries, how to improve that, but there's so much negative feelings and anger towards each other. And because of that, it's creating more and more divisions, and it's creating less and less space, environment to find a compromise and work together. Why they cannot find? Why is it unable to? Why is that they are unable to find compromise when they have been able to do a lot in the past? Because there is so much anger. That is what, when there is not anger involved in there, then I think even if you have different view, you will be able to find a compromise. And I think, and so again, whether it is for a country or any problem, or even on individual level, that is the case, Even on our individual level, even sometimes when you feel like you didn't make any mistake, and when others feel that you make a mistake, but due to some misunderstanding, miscommunication, whatever, But when you feel they don't have any bad feeling, but it is just misunderstanding, miscommunications, that they actually respect you, then, even when you feel that you didn't make mistakes, sometimes you are willing to accept some mistakes just to clear the problems, solve the problems. You are willing to do that, But when you feel there is anger, you will never feel ready to do that, Accept. Sometimes even when we know we are wrong, we are unable to accept. We will not accept we are wrong because you feel anger, so much the anger. And so therefore, therefore, even with anger, even though it might achieve something immediately, temporarily, but in long term, it doesn't last. That change, doesn't last. Or the change doesn't become good. We try to bring the change for betterness, but sometimes it doesn't bring better. Instead, sometimes it makes it worse. Because again, a lot of time, because there's so much negative feelings of anger involved in that. Whereas if it is not involved in that, then definitely, when there is positive changes, there's more likely to have positive changes. And when if you have changes, it's more likely to have more lasting, better result. And so therefore, I think, definitely anger can give some motivation, but only short term.
Yes, on your screen, Laura has a question.
Yes, please.
Thank you so much. I take your point well, especially when it comes to the relations between countries and also the relations between different political groups inside of countries. If you take down many, many levels and you talk again about person to person, I have a question about that.
Yes.
So I think it's in the Bodhisattva's way, chapter 8, I think Shantideva talks about take your enemy as higher than the Buddha. So my question is this. So there are cases in which you must deal with people. Certain people that you have, maybe you have karmic relations, or you are in a situation where you must work with them, or you must deal with them, you must relate with them. So I can understand applying the mind training to these kinds of circumstances. What about situations where the relationships are more of choice? You can talk about romantic relationship or friendship. These are more or less, there are times when these are no longer, not necessary relationships, but of choice. If you are dealing with someone who has a lot of anger and seems not to be sincerely interested in improving, do you yourself just continue to try to practice mind training? Or at some point do you say, okay, this isn't healthy, this is not beneficial, we both can part,
Mhm.
and you go your karmic path, I go my karmic path.
Mhm.
How do you know when, and how do you deal with this kind of situation? I know, of course, you're a monk, so you have different experiences.
Uh-huh. Yeah, whether it's in such a relationship or any other relationship, when it becomes very unhealthy, you know. Mm, uh, Sometimes it is not just only romantic relationship. The unhealthy relation can be in all kind of different relationship as well, you know. And in such relationship, when other side is, you know, angry, or they have problem with anger management, and either they don't see that as a problem, unable to see them as a problem, and sometimes they don't acknowledge, or they don't take responsibility, or they don't want to change. uh, you know, of course, from our side we try to practice, you know, patience, uh, as explaining both a way of life by using different um, way of contemplating, analyzing. We try to practice patience and not allow anger and hatred to arise. Uh, if possible, we try to feel compassion as well. But at the same time, you know, even from your side, you try to do that and you put effort to do that. But despite that, you know, if if the other is unwilling to change, or unable to change, unwilling to change, and you are getting a, you know, if we have a strong practice, uh, we shouldn't be affected so much by them, even they don't change it. We shouldn't. But at the same time, also we have to be realistic and accept where we are. We are trying to practice, but we haven't reached a point where we don't get really affected by them. You know, if we are in a state where we are trying and we practice, maybe we are improving a little bit, but at the same time, you know, we feel the energy, the effect of that energy, and that is unhealthy, and that disturb your mind. You know, despite trying to practice, you know, so then, you know, if it become unhealthy in such, then, you know, it's better to keep distance, you know, physical distance. Uh, and that is what I call, as I mentioned this morning, creating boundaries. You know, sometimes we need to create the boundaries, because at the moment we haven't reached a point where without that boundary that we can handle without being affected uh, negatively, unhealthy way. And in some cases, sometimes then definitely you reach a point where you have to make decisions. So that such unhealthy relationship does not continue, where it affect both negatively, you know. So sometimes taking actions to kind of keep distant, separate. Sometimes, even though at the very beginning it might be hurtful, but in long term it might be better, instead of living in such unhealthy with so much negative energy. Instead, then we don't have to live with that kind of negative energy. So again, you know, when I cannot say, you know, I cannot say, you know, individually, we all have to find out, try, see, you know, whether we can make it work, you know, giving enough time, giving enough effort to make whether things happens. Also being whether it's only from their side or also there's something from my side as well, being honest with ourselves. Sometimes there is also something contributing from our side. Maybe someone might be contributing more, or sometimes we can see the other side's role in this unhealthy relationship. But sometimes it's hard to see our own role in creating that unhealthy relationship. And so again, also being honest with ourselves and trying to see whether there is anything that I could change, I should change as well. And so, so with that contemplations, and then, giving enough time and energy, effort to see whether things can improve, things can work, whether it can become more healthy, more positive. And after some time, even with a sincere effort, and even with enough time, then if still we don't feel like there is any improvement, then then that is time when we try to keep distance. Yeah, so in that way, it protects yourself, it protects the others as well, because sometimes what happens is, the other person might be very have an anger issue, let's say, or any other problematic issues. And sometimes, and of course, that will affect you. And when we don't have a strong practice, and when we don't have a strong practice or tools to deal with that, then we can try to be patient one time. We can try to be patient, but we're not really patient. We're just trying to be patient, and after some time it breaks down. It sometimes break down, and then sometimes it explode in such a bad way that it becomes very painful and extremely painful for everyone involved. And sometimes before it turns into that, sometimes it's better to kind of stop before things are not so great, but at the same time it doesn't turn so extremely bad. And yeah. Yes, please.
Yeah, often it's said that anger will destroy all your merit.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain how that is possible? What makes that work like that?
You find those statements in Shantideva's chapter 6, patient chapter at the very beginning. Also, you see in Chandrakiri's Madhyamika Avatara. And so those are one of the sources that you find, earlier sources in Indian scriptures about that. And according to some commentaries and teachings from some of the teachers, they differentiate the merit that can be destroyed by the anger and merit that cannot be destroyed by the anger. It's mentioned the merit or the virtues that we have created, which is not based in the wisdom, can be destroyed. But the virtues of merit that is rooted in the wisdom or the merit that we create through wisdom, the virtues we create from wisdom, or the virtue that's rooted in the wisdom cannot be destroyed. So I think it is important to differentiate that two things first. Not all the virtues, not all the merit. If you look in the Shantideva, it says the generosity and making offering to the Buddha, such an extra some such virtue will be destroyed. So again, they say the merit or the virtue that we create that is not rooted in understanding or wisdom, more coming from kind of faith, or more come from blind faith, or belief or faith that is not rooted in understanding of wisdom, they are more fragile. They are more fragile, and therefore they can be destroyed by anger. Such not only the virtues, even our faith or belief, devotions, that is not rooted in understanding of wisdom is also very fragile. We can lose that very easily. We can lose the devotion, the faith, the belief we have at the moment due to certain circumstances. Or if someone explained differently, our mind is is very fragile. It's not. Whereas something that you have belief or faith or devotion that's rooted in wisdom, understanding and wisdom, then nothing can break it, because it comes through. There's a very strong foundations, and same with the virtues. And so I think that is, so therefore something, a virtues or merit that's not rooted in such a strong foundations, then, can be destroyed by negative energy forces such as anger, wrong view, and so forth. It's also the same way in positive, destroying negative karma or negative action through the virtuous practice, So again, we can purify and destroy the negative karma through certain practice, purification, and other practices. So it's not only one way around, it's also both ways. Sometimes we hear only the anger destroying the virtues, but we don't think also the virtues destroying the negative karma as well. Do you get it? Mm-hmm. If you see both sides, then I think, again, because sometimes we feel, oh, what merit I might have, what virtue there is left because of my anger destroying that. It feels like it's kind of, first of all, as I mentioned, according to that, not all the virtues can be destroyed, especially the virtues that we create through wisdom or virtues that are rooted in wisdom. Another thing is when we dedicate the merit for enlightenment, that virtue, that merit cannot be destroyed completely. In one of the sutras, I think asked by Loden Miseva, one of the audience, in Buddha says, is the virtues that have been dedicated to enlightenment do not cease or exhaust, just like one drop of water in the oceans. As long as the ocean is there, the part of one drop of water will be there until the ocean is kind of dry up. Similarly, until you achieve enlightenment, the virtues that are dedicated to enlightenment, will continue to experience the result of that. And so therefore, again, with that also, it cannot be destroyed completely by anger when we dedicate in that way. Also, when we dedicate with what I call sealed by the emptiness, at the end, by seeing the dedication itself, you're yourself who's dedicating, the object to whom we are dedicating, the object that has been dedicated, the merit itself, and when you see all of them as, when you dedicate by seeing all of them empty of inherent nature, by bringing the wisdom, by seeing non-inherent existing of all of them, and when you dedicate through that, again, it is like you have protected your virtues from completely being destroyed. And so I think that, it did.
A further question for me. First of all, thank you very much for that, because that's something I had not heard before. It's very useful. But how would many virtues that are not influenced by wisdom be destroyed by one moment of anger? How could one moment destroy so many virtues?
Yeah. It takes so much time, energy, resource, effort, time to build, let's say, a big city or countries. How long it takes to destroy it? One moment, atom bomb, in one moment it can destroy like that.
I see. So in that sense, anger is a bomb.
Yeah. Anger is anger, and then the wrong view, especially anger, is the very strong wrong atom, like atom bomb, that can destroy a lot of virtues. It can be other way around. Wisdom realizing emptiness or bodhisattva is like an atom that can destroy so much negative karma. We have to remember also the other side. Sometimes we forget that side, and we only think destroying by that negative force, destroying the positive karma or merit. But also we have to remember, otherwise it can be very discouraging. Do you get it? If we just think of one-sided, we can become discouraging. It can feel like we can lose some hope sometime, But if we know that, same thing, that is how karma works. So also, just as that is, the anger is so powerful to destroy so much of virtues, on the same way, wisdom realizing emptiness or the bodhisattva has like an atom bomb so powerful to destroy not just one negative karma or one, so much negative karma instantly, very strong. Yeah.
Yes, Geshe Sherab, could you share advice if one experiences anger as opposed to expressing it or suppressing it in a day-to-day capacity, how to sort of utilize it in order to develop greater wisdom or just sort of experience it without suppressing?
Yes, suppressing is never the Buddhist tool, method. A lot of people think it's suppressing, but I think suppressing is never a Buddhist tool. Sometimes we need to suppress for certain moments, certain period. If you don't suppress, because you cannot control it, then it can explode in a way that becomes very, very harmful and destructive. But once in a moment, you might suppress it, not express it, and not even feel fully, not even feel or experience fully in that moment, because if you try to feel and experience fully, again, it can explode. And that can lead to a very harmful reactions or response that can be very harmful to others and oneself. So in such moments, sometimes it's helpful to suppress a little bit, not to fully experience or feel and express it. But then, once your mind is more calm, peaceful later, then you have to bring the emotion. You don't suppress. Now you bring it up. Especially you bring it when you are calm, peaceful, and when you are not with that person that you are feeling, when you're by yourself. And then in that moment, you allow the feeling to completely, whatever feeling it is, to arise fully. You bring it fully instead of suppressing. You actually intentionally, purposely bring it up and experience fully, feel it fully. And then once you feel it fully, then of course, there are many different meditation practice, what to do with that. Analytical meditation, non-analytical meditations, non-analytical meditations, just being experiencing and feeling and just being aware of it, not getting involved with that, simply just observing and being aware, but not really allowing yourself mind to involve, engage. And then there are analytical meditations, as is explained in the Guides to Both Way of Life by Shantideva. There are so many different ways that we can analyze. Why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling now. Why am I angry? Why am I angry? So then we come to thoughts, oh, I'm angry because he or she said that, or he or she did that, or because this happened, that happened, whatever. So we have all the reasons why we feel that way. Reason get upset, angry. Reason get upset. So we have all this. And we get upset that because this and that happened, and because we feel that what happened, or what he said, or she said, or what he or she did was something painful, hurtful, harmful, negative. That's why we are upset, angry. And now with the analysis, the way Shantideva used, then from another angle, try to look from another angle. Is that really so? Is that as bad as you feel? Is it as harmful and negative as you feel? Is there a possibility that actually it was something beneficial from another perspective, from another angles? Is it really just negative, harmful from all the sides? So when you analyze from that, then you started to have a different perspective, different understanding and different perspective about what happens. And once you have different perspective, different understanding of the situation, then your feeling also changes. Your feeling also changes. Now you don't feel so bad as before. You don't feel so negative as before. You don't feel so anger as before. In some cases, maybe you might even feel, maybe some appreciations, for practitioners for giving the opportunity to practice, and that really help you to practice and to you to make progress. So again, so then you use different analytical meditation, whether you use different analysis, different contemplation analysis that Shantideva used, or also whether we use meditations on impermanence, whether we meditate on emptiness, on the objects of the anger, yourself, the anger itself, again, through that, then again we can reduce and overcome that anger. So therefore, it's not suppressing. It shouldn't be suppressed. Because if it's suppressed, then it's only a matter of you suppress one, and then again you suppress, and then after some time it's full. There's no space to suppress anymore, and then it explodes. And when it explodes, it can be very, very, very destructive. And so therefore suppressing is never the tool. Even though sometimes it is helpful for suppress and not to express and experience and feel fully for a moment. In that very moment, you can try to do that, but afterwards, to get rid of that, you really have to not suppress, but actually bring it up in meditations. Yeah. Any others? So then if we don't have questions, then I will continue. So this morning we discussed about, the shortcoming, the disadvantages, the damage, the harm that anger does to oneself and others. And through that understanding how harmful it is, how damaging it is, how then, cultivating a strong wish to, or determinations, to work with our mind, to not allow our mind to be influenced or controlled by such anger, and then on the basis of that, then trying to put effort in whatever practice meditation tool we have to apply. Of course, when we come to dealing with the delusions, such as anger, Buddha gave 3 different approaches or practice according to the level of the practitioners. 3 different approaches, different according to the level of the practitioners. For the more advanced practitioners who have the tools, those who have, let's say, good practice of patience or wisdom realizing emptiness, wisdom realizing subtle impermanence. So because through such tools, then, they can get rid of the delusion from the very root of it. Not only kind of reducing, not only just reducing, or not only getting rid of them temporarily, but getting rid of them completely from the very root of it, For less advanced practitioners, then, Buddha gave other approach, that is, just a non-analytical meditation, mindfulness, shamatha meditations. Through such shamatha meditations, when you are through such meditations, then you are able to kind of, empty the thoughts, you just focus on whatever object you try to hold on, and through that, the thoughts start to dissolve slowly, less and less thoughts. Less thoughts, and when you have no thought arising, then anger doesn't arise. Anger is a thought. And also, angers arise because of so many other thoughts. Anger arises because he or she did this to me, that thought. Because or he said this to me. Because, so all different thoughts, give rise to anger. And anger is self-thought. So when all this kind of dissolve, there's no anger arising as long as you're in that state of mind. So as long as you're in that state of mind, the anger doesn't arise. But if you haven't get rid of it, it's still there. It's not just arising. Because you have this, through such meditation and techniques, you are able to calm down all the other thoughts. But for some, they don't even have that skill. That also requires a lot of meditation, a lot of skills. And so for the very beginner, who doesn't have those high level tools, then Buddha's approach or the advice is keep distant from the object that give rise to it. Do you get it? If something make you very upset and angry, and you don't have tool to do it, just keep away from it. If there's some object that give you rise to craving and attachment, and you don't have tools dealing with that, try to keep it distant from that. That is for the very beginner, So at the very beginning, when we don't have tools, then, the best way is to keep distant from the object that give rise to anger or other delusions. And while we have that environment where, because there is not so much object that give rise to delusion, and your mind is more calm, peaceful, and less distracted, then you try to use that situation to develop strong mind, concentration, and wisdom. And once you develop that wisdom and concentrations, then you don't have to keep distant from the objects. Even you come in the contact with the object, you have tool to deal with that. Because of your tool, by being able to, through meditations, you do not allow that delusion to arise, even you are in contact with the objects. And as you improve your practice, then, not only you don't allow that delusion to arise, but you don't have to do anything because there is no more delusion anymore. You have gotten rid of it already together. So you don't even have to try to meditate so that it doesn't arise. Do you get it? Because you have gotten rid of it from the very root. So that is what the wisdom does. So again, those are kind of different approach according to our level of practice. Again, that is the beauty of the Buddha's teachings and the practice, is that he gave different practices according to the level of the disciple or the people, how much tools, depending on how much tool, you have. And if not, then definitely, I've heard some friends, who have this role, and some of them they regret, not everyone. Some of them regret, and some of them that I heard, they dissolve because with the intention to help others at the very beginning. But actually, what they found out was they were unable to help, benefit. So they lose their rope. At the same time, they couldn't help benefit as they wished for, even though they had wished. Again, because they don't have the tools, they haven't developed the tools to be able to help and benefit. It requires a lot of tools. You need to be patient, to help someone. It's not easy, Even you have the best intentions, wanting to help, benefit, require tools such as patience, understandings, compassions, skillful means, all of that, so then, so yeah, so that is so yeah, we were talking about so we're talking about 3 different levels of the practice in dealing with anger and any other delusion, depending on the level of the practitioners. Another thing is, if possible, the delusion not arising at all. That is what the ideal, the ultimate goal, the ideal goal is, that the delusion do not arise at all. Second is, even we haven't reached that point, even the delusion arises, catching up quickly is the key. The faster you are able to recognize it, catch it, the easier is to deal with that. For that, you need a strong mindfulness. The stronger mindfulness you are, stronger mindfulness practice you have, the easier, the quickly you are able to catch up when any delusion arises. When anger is arising, for example, when anger is arising, it is still not so strong at the very beginning. Like everything, just like fire, you start with small and it become bigger and bigger. Same way, feelings, whether it's attachments, whether it's anger, it starts with small. And then, our fabricating mind, keep on pouring the fuel, how bad that person is, how horrible that person is, how dare he or she does that, how unkind, so all these fuels and it becomes stronger and stronger. At the very beginning, it's not so intense and strong. Sometimes it might feel very intense and very strong from the very beginning because we didn't pay attention and it has already been time. Sometimes it has already been one day or even weeks. Sometimes it has already been a few hours. So it has built over these few hours, few days, few weeks, until we recognize when it becomes very intense. So if you have strong mindfulness, the sooner you are able to recognize, the more easier it is to deal with that, because it is not so intense and strong. It's weak. So when the delusion, such as anger, is weak, even with your weak practice, you can overcome them. But when your anger, delusion very strong, very intense and very strong, your weak practice will not able to overcome it. You also need very strong practice. It doesn't match. The other energy is too strong, too intense, and your practice is so weak. To overcome that, your practice needs equal kind of strong. But and so therefore, I give you a example. For example, when the fire starts, because the candle, we have light candles and the wind blow and then it starts catching. When you recognize with the first things, when the candle has blown up and it's starting to catch, you don't need so much water. One glass of water, you can extinguish the fire. Okay? Maybe you didn't see that. After 1 hour, it's much bigger. By that time, one glass of water is not going to be enough. You need many buckets of water to extinguish it. You are not even aware of that, and it has become much more bigger fire. And then you need firefighters. The quicker you are able to, the earlier you are able to see it, less effort and less that required. The longer it takes, and that is why, when you have, at the moment, sometimes even very easy intent, we are not even aware a lot of time. We have been already in that state of mind, intense and feeling very strong. We are not even aware that you are angry or anger arises. Sometimes we are aware when it's intense, but we are not aware when it's not so intense. So the earlier you are able to recognize and be aware, the easier is to take care of. It requires, it doesn't require very strong practice. Even with this kind of not so strong practice, you can overcome it. But when it's intense, then you really need strong practice and strong, powerful practice. And so, and when your mindfulness get so, powerful, complete, when you complete the power of the mindfulness so strongly, then, it is mentioned you can be even aware, even before the delusion arises. When the conditions are coming together for the delusion to arise, just as we mentioned this morning, the delusion also arises due to coming together many conditions. So like candle is there and there is no fire and you started to feel condition there, it's windy, the window is not closed, and there's possibility that wind blowing, and so the fire hasn't started, but there is some condition that could lead to fire. And so if you just close the window or just take the fire doesn't have to happen. Even a small fire doesn't have to happen. Same way, through such strong practice, one is able to, stop from anger or any delusion arising when they see that certain conditions are coming together for one of those afflictive emotions or delusions to arise, So therefore, again, in that way, how strong your mindfulness practice meditations can have a strong impact on recognizing sooner and earlier. And the sooner or earlier you recognize less damage, less harm is done, and more easier to overcome that. But of course, we don't have strong mindfulness practice, so we are not aware before, even not aware at the time when the condition coming together. So the fire has already started, and then you recognize the very first earlier stage, or in the middle, or the end. And then once you have recognized, once the delusion already arises, the anger already arises, now you are experiencing that, you are feeling that anger, Now next is, you haven't been able to stop from it arising, it has already arises. So now is, how can we let it go sooner and not hold on that? The longer you hold on that, the more harm and damage it does. As there is a example that Buddha gave, burning stone, if you are holding that, the sooner you are able to let it go, the less it burn your hand. The more you hold on that, the more you burn that. Similarly, anger, the sooner you are able to let it go, the better it is. The longer duration we hold on it, the more harm it does. And so next is, once it's already arising, how can we let it go? How should we let it go? And so that is where different analytical meditation can come. Different analytical meditation can come. As I mentioned, of course, there are also non-analytical meditations, simply learning to observe, be aware, mindful, without engaging in that as well, without shooting or engaging in that. But also there are analytical meditations that we can use and different analysis. And so one of the Chandrakirti in his writing, he used by getting angry for someone or something because some harmful thing is done, by getting angry, will that problem solve? With that damage or harm that is already done, can you undo that? If someone has done something damage to me, something harmful to me, by me getting angry, can that be undone? No, the damage is already done, harm is already done on whatever that is. So therefore, if your anger cannot undone the damage, the harm is done, why is it useless to get angry and upset? It's useless to get upset and angry. Recognizing that when you understand it is useless to get upset and angry, because we cannot solve we cannot solve the problem, the damage, the harm is already done, cannot be undone, cannot be overcome, is already done. Therefore, getting upset and angry, where you cannot solve that, undo that, is meaningless. It only damages you. It only damages you. So it is meaningless. By seeing the meaningless of that, again, you don't try to hold on to it, by saying it's meaningless for me to hold on that. It's pointless, it's meaningless for me to hold on that. By holding And by holding, by holding, even if it does little damage, if it can undo the damage and harm that was done already, at least there is some point, there's some reason to hold on that. But there is nothing that can be done. And so therefore, when we feel and understand it's really, really pointless, it's really stupid and pointless to hold on that, then, again, you kind of let it go. You let it go. A lot of time we are unable to let it go because we feel like there's a reason to hold on that, there's a reason to hold on that, but again, when you realize it's pointless and reason, there's pointless in holding on that, again, it makes it more easier to not hold and let it go. And then, Shandeva used many different reasoning logics, if someone is upset and angry and do something harmful out of that anger and hatred, to whom am I angry? Analyze. To whom am I angry? Of course, if we really check it, we're angry to that person. We're angry with that person. We are angry and upset with that person because we feel or we believe that person has done something harmful, something bad, whether to yourself or someone else, because we believe and we feel that way, because that person did that. But again, he used, is that the person who did that? Will the person do that harmful actions and hurtful actions if he or she doesn't have the delusions? If he or she doesn't have the anger, the delusions, it could be anger, it could be out of ignorance, it could be out of jealousy, it could be out of whatever one of the negative emotion. If he or she doesn't have those, any of those negative emotions, will he or she will act that way? No. Then who is to blame? The person or his or her delusions? Who is to blame? The person or to give an example of, if someone hit you with a stick, and because of that stick, someone hit you, you have wounded or sore pain from that. You get upset, angry. To whom? To stick or to the person? The person, yeah. That's normally what we get upset, angry to the person, not to the stick. Even though it's the stick, that really make, the sore, the damage, physical damage, the harm, the pain. Even though it is the actually really would make that is the stick, but still we don't get upset. We get upset with the person. Why? Because we know the stick doesn't come by itself. There was someone, the stick didn't just flew over by itself, and there was someone who is holding, controlling the stick, and there's someone behind the stick, isn't it? That's why we get upset to the person, not the stick. Then he said, if that is the case, there is something else that's holding the person behind that. That's the delusions. So delusions is like the remote control of that person. So therefore, then he said, you shouldn't be upset with the person. If you are upset and angry, you should be upset and angry with his delusion or her delusion, not the person itself. Just like we don't get upset with the stick, but with the person, because the person is behind the stick. If that is the case, then there's also something behind the person. That is their delusion that make them to do that. Again, it makes sense if we really analyze this, you know. And it's saying, forget about others. If we try to look on ourselves, when we engage in some kind of harmful, hurtful actions towards someone, why we do that? Why we do that? And as we mentioned this morning, because we're overwhelmed, overcome, overpowered by one of the delusions. Sometimes it is ignorance. We are ignorant about that person or certain situations or certain circumstances. Sometimes it is because we are jealous of something, envy and jealous. Sometimes it is because of attachments. Sometimes it's because of anger, and that one of those delusions. If we don't have any of those delusions, would we act that way? Would we do that? No, So what it shows, and to do that, when we engage in that, lot of time, when we really analyze, we have no control. In that moment, we lose the control. We lose the control. We are overwhelmed by ignorance. We are not aware that we are ignorant in that moment. And because of that, that's what we do. Or anger. We don't, we try very much, try not to get angry, but in the moment we lose. And we get upset and anger take over. And then that's how. So if you check, so same thing, people act in certain way, because they lose control of their own mind and themselves in that moment due to one of the afflictive emotions. So instead of getting upset, Shandeva said, you should feel, you should feel compassion for that person, because that person had no control. He or she has been slave of their own delusions. Wouldn't we be compassion for someone if they have been enslaved? Someone has kept them as a slave, no control, no freedom. Would you feel compassion for that person? Same way, Shandya was saying, the beings who are under the control of the delusions, they are in the prisoner of the delusion. They are prisoner of the delusion. They are the slave of the delusions. You should feel compassion, not upset and angry. Again, reflecting, contemplating, analyzing that way, again, can help to let go of whatever anger that we might have felt due to whatever actions, situations. So, therefore, he said they are not object of anger, they are object of compassion. They are not the object of anger, they are the object of compassion. As Shandeva said, those who make more mistake, those who are more violent, more aggression, who are more mean, who are more cruel, you should have more compassion, not more anger. They require more compassion instead of more anger. Because that means they're suffering a lot. People who suffer more, they become more violent, aggressive, more cruel. Not only people, it's the same with the animals. If you see the dogs or other animals, you see them, those who have been abused, the dogs who have been abused when they are young child, they are more aggressive, more violent. Why? Because they have so much fear. They have so much fear and they are trying to protect. They are suffering much more than the dogs who has not been abused as a child, as a young. They don't have that kind of fear of being someone trying to abuse them, you know. Same way, same, you know, normally, you know, people who are aggressive or violent and cruel and mean, a lot of time they're experiencing more suffering, more pain. And that pain, that suffering manifest in the form of aggression, violence, and cruelty. Of course, it is not excuse. It is not excuse for such behavior, but you can understand where it comes from. Do you get it? It's two different things. If your dogs, because they have been abused when they were young, before you took from shelter, if they're aggressive, you wouldn't agree with that actions. You will not allow that to be aggressive. You will try to train them not to be aggressive. You will try to help them not to be aggressive. You will try to change from that because you don't agree with that. But at the same time, you can feel for the dog where it comes from. That dog is behaving that way, acting that way because of that background, because of the pain and sufferings that it went through, and that kind of traumatized them. And you know, in subconscious or consciously, there is that fear and all the time. Similarly, you know, that also, you know, with so even though we don't agree with someone being very cruel, mean, and violent, aggressive, and if there's a way that we can train, we can stop such action, behavior, we try to do that. At the same time, we also understand where that's coming from. And then we feel for that person. And that is where one of the great Indian master, Arya Deva, you know, Arya Deva was one of the main disciple of Nagarjuna, and his 400th stanza, he says, the Buddha explained to differentiate the person and the person's actions. The person and person's actions. We have to differentiate those two things. We feel compassion for the person, but at the same time, we don't agree with the person's actions. And there shouldn't be any contradiction to have both. Do you get it? If someone is aggressive, violent, cruel, mean, we don't agree with such action. We should take action to stop such behavior, such action, harmful actions. At the same time, while we don't agree with such actions and we try to stop such actions, at the same time, you should feel compassion for the persons. And that is the key. That is the key. At the moment in our world, we don't differentiate those two things. That is the problem. When we don't differentiate that person to the person's action persons, then when we see that person's actions as being harmful, aggressive, cruel, mean, then we cannot feel compassion on that person. Do you get it? Unable to feel compassion because we cannot differentiate those two things, the action and the persons. But if we are able to differentiate the person and person's actions, then we can feel compassion for the persons. At the same time, we disagree with the person's actions. Not only disagree, we take action to stop such harmful actions. And if we are able to do that, it's much more healthy, positive for yourself, to the society, to the other person, everyone, And at the moment, we have a problem with not being able to do that. Yes.
No, thank you. Because what you just said, we have a problem doing that. This was my question. Intellectually, yes, I agree totally. But if there are people, in my heart, I just no room to forgive, no room to feel compassion, just no, nothing. I understand up here, but I just can't.
Now, your understanding here, you have to bring your understanding here.
How?
Meditation practice. Meditations. So we have intellectual understanding because we have heard, we have read it, we have heard it, but we haven't made it experiential understanding. So to make it experiential understanding, we have to contemplate, meditating again and again and again, trying to see the person action as a different, not just intellectually, that you feel it, that you really feel it. Yes, I can see that. I can see that the person's actions, why I don't agree with that person's action, but I can understand where it might come from, just like giving example of animals. Maybe it's more easy for us to understand. We take that example of animal. Can you feel compassion for a very aggressive and very violent cat, dog, when you understand that dog is acting that way because that dog has been abused?
No control.
No control, and it has been abused before,
Yes.
and traumatized by that. So you don't agree with that, such a harmful behavior, but at the same time, you can feel for the compassion for that. If you can do that, why can't we do that for human beings? Same things. So we have to remind ourselves, we have to contemplate and meditate again and again that if I can do this for the dog, same thing,
So meditation is like analytical meditation. So I meditate on, I feel something and then I try to understand.
Yes. Yeah, maybe we can't feel compassion for certain individuals because his actions, or behavior is cruel, mean, unkind, destructive, divisive, whatever you feel, you see, which is not good and we should try to stand up. We should try to, not allow such things happen in whatever way we can. But at the same time, understanding that person is behaving that way, acting in that way, because there is so much suffering, because there is so much fear suffering in that person. That fear suffering is driving that person to behave that way. Just like that dog. If that person has no fear, no worry, no suffering, that person will not do that. Is because there's so much fear and worry trying to protect himself. By doing all this, by taking all this action, he thinks he can protect himself from all the problem that he could end up, all the suffering that he would end up. So basically, becoming more aggression, more violent, more device, all of that to protect himself. Why he need to protect? Because there's so much fear, even though it doesn't show that, but you can see that is coming from fear, a lot of fear, pain, sufferings. And through that, then maybe we can feel a little bit, for the persons, not for the actions, yeah. So that was what I was discussing about this, the statements or the verse by the Ada Deva from the 400 stanzas, Again, as in all the Lojong mind training teaching says, again, we have studied, we have learned those different practice meditations, where can we put into the practice? To whom we can put in the practice? Is with those difficult people. If everyone is nice, compassionate, caring, loving, we don't need to practice patience. There's no need of practicing patience. Everyone is kind, nice, no one bother you, no one bother anyone. If everyone's like Buddha, there's no need of practice. There's no need of practice of patience. Since there is unenlightened beings with delusions and with such harmful actions, that's where the patience comes. That's where we need to practice. That's why we need to practice. That is where Shantideva said, as Laura mentioned before, that is where, from that perspective, the enemy or those who create problem are more precious than the Buddha themselves and our gurus or our Buddha themselves for providing us the opportunity to practice. And only through practice we can improve, we can perfect, we can complete. Without practice, there's no way we can complete and perfect the practice of patience. To practice, you need to have the object to practice, the opportunity to practice. Who is the object of practice? Who give you opportunity to practice? Then such individuals. And from that perspective, then he or she is even more precious than the Buddhas. More precious for your practice of patience, for your perfections and completion of the patience, for giving us the opportunity to practice patience, giving us the opportunity to learn and grow and improve and become better. That is why in some of Lojong, they say the enemy is your best teachers, your best guru, best teacher and best guru. And I always try to explain in our learning, even our normal educations, not learning, we have two teachers, theoretical teachers and practical teachers. Theoretical teachers teach you in the classroom how to cook, how to garden, what kind of soil, how much to dig, all different things, what ingredient you need, all of that. Then there's a practical teacher that take you in the garden to make you do, or take you in the kitchen and make you cook. It is through the practical teachers that you actually really learn and perfect. And that is our gurus, our teachers who give us instruction how to practice patience. They are theoretical teachers. They are like the theoretical teachers who give you all the instructions, how to practice, how to contemplate, how to analyze, how to apply, how to meditate. Enemy is the practical teacher. Now the enemy is saying, you have learned all this, you have studied all this, you have got all the instructions, all the practice, now let's do it. That is where you really perfect and complete. Without that, you just collect information, all the instructions, and it's all here. It's just like Google, If you Google, how to practice patience, maybe it might have a lot of those analyses. I don't know at the moment, but probably in the future, all will be there, all the information will be there. Probably Geshe maybe already have many of them, So, but having that information doesn't change you so much, doesn't make much transformations, And so we have studied and learned, and we have collected all the information, all the techniques, but then we have to put those into the practice, apply them into the practice, and in terms of patience, to really apply it, then you need such opportunity, without that. So then they are the one true teachers in that, true practical teachers, true practical teachers. And I share, on stories that Adisha, the great Adisha, the great master, he was one of the greatest, he was the greatest master at his time in India, studying, according to many commentaries, and study in Nalanda, and then later, in the Vigamshila, another big learning institutions after Nalanda, and then from there he was invited to Tibet. So anyway, and he was the instrument in reviving the Buddhism to its purity in Tibet again, because Buddhism came and then it declined, it went through many, up and downs, during the Langdharma, King Langdharma's time, he was no supporter and supportive of the Buddhism, so he destroyed and it is said for last 75, Buddhism kind of. And then again, when it came back again, and then there was a lot of, polluted as well, and people couldn't differentiate what is real Buddhist and what is non-real Buddhist. There were a lot. So again, Adisha was instrument in kind of clearing all this misconception, misunderstanding, and bringing purity back. So anyway, Adisha had brought one from India. He brought one tea boy, tea boy to serve tea, to make tea and serve tea, and he was very annoying person, his nature, his personality, character is very, it annoyed everyone, everyone. And so some of the disciples of the Tibetan disciples told Adisha, why do you need to bring him? He doesn't, you don't need to bring him, we can serve you. He's not respectful. He's not serving well, he's all of that, give us opportunity to serve in that. And Adisha said, I brought him purposefully because he helped with my practice. But that is, because he needed someone to challenge all the time with that, so he can really work with his mind, and it helped his practice. That is, and so for such practitioner, they appreciate, being around with such people, because it gives them opportunity all the time to work, and through by working, they were able to make progress. For us, if we don't have to be with them even for a moment, we would like to, and that is the differences. Because when you really put in practice, then, such people, when you really put in practice, such person, such people become so important, crucial for your spiritual growth, such as practice of patience and so forth. So, yeah, I think maybe I will stop here, unless you have any questions. Anyone, any questions? Anyone? Yes, please.
I have something I wanted to share, and then something that I wanted to ask about. I think I was thinking about anger and why I keep it and have kept it, particularly for family members or certain figures in the world for so long. And it was fear, or it is fear, and it's because it seems like it'll protect me somehow. Like anger will keep me alert, and I'll keep them away. But it's fear.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that sometimes stops me from practicing things that I've been taught, like what you said about that we feel compassion for someone who's physically enslaved, therefore we should feel compassion for someone who's enslaved to their delusions. I kind of feel like it makes me think like I'm somehow better than them, that I know that. And there's another piece of that, which is if I'm trying to be respectful of someone and somehow engage them in a conversation or problem solving, it feels like having this thought of, well, I know more than you do. I know why you're acting this way. It gives me this bad feeling of superiority.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that's my psychology, but it does stop me from applying things that I've learned.
Uh-huh.
Is there a way to be both confident in the Dharma that I've been taught, but also so open and respectful?
Yes. Yes. Yes, we might know more, but other person might know less, but they might be more compassion. Let's say example of compassions. I might know more about more compassion, what it means, how to apply all this and that. But in reality, in practical, there might be a person who doesn't have any idea, even express what compassion is, but who embodies compassion. And that could be same with all others. I might have more informations, knowledge about, let's say, patients, but there might be who have less information, less knowledge about patients, but who embody patients. So therefore, just because I have more knowledge, because I have studied more knowledge, it doesn't mean I'm more superior to the others because they haven't studied or they have less knowledge of that. So I think that can be, for me, that helps. Sometimes just because you are associated with certain, political views, let's say Democratic basis, Republicans, or just because you are associated particular religions, let's say Buddhism, which emphasize very much on compassion and all of that, But does that mean we are more compassionate than who are on the other side? Not necessarily. Or when it comes to political view, they might be associated with others' party. But there are a lot of people who are more compassionate, even though they are associated with the other political view, but who are much more compassionate than, let's say, myself, who is associated with a particular party or view. And that can be applied also in terms of religion as well, spiritual path as well. And so therefore, I think reminding ourselves of that, not just because we have studied more, we have learned more, we have more knowledge of certain things, that doesn't mean we are more superior to someone else who doesn't have same knowledge that,
Is it kind of like you were saying last night about finding the good in everything?
Yes. Yeah, that is one way of, even some persons who might seem not so kind, compassion, but you never know what they have, good, positive. One of my friend, a Geshe monk, he was sharing stories. He said here and another friend, and outside the other friend seems like less compassion, less caring. Another monk, his personality, his nature, whereas he always felt he was more kind, compassionate. Because when someone asks, he can't say no. He tried to help in that. But later he realized, it is not true compassion. It's like, unable to say no, So then it's a different than when you really out of compassion wanting to help and benefit. Then when someone asks you, and even though you don't feel like you want to help, but somehow you cannot say no. And then, whereas the other person, he said, when he really came to someone who need help, he was really there. And and so sometimes from outside personality, it seems someone is less compassionate, less caring, but they might be more compassionate, more caring. Sometimes someone might be less generous, but they might be more generous. So all of those different qualities. So there is so we cannot judge just from the outside. the way it appears to us, the way we see from external. We cannot kind of judge what inside the internal qualities. That is one thing. And the second thing, again, trying to find, something positive, because there is something positive in everyone. If we talk about Buddha nature, everyone is Buddha nature, but even if we don't talk from the Buddha nature, still there is something positive qualities that person possess that we don't possess,
And we can assume that's true even if they seem cruel, mean, even if they're killing other people. But we can also still know the other side, which is the only reason they were being harmful is because of they're enslaved to their delusions.
Yeah, because of their delusions, they are prisoner, enslaved of their own delusions. Sometimes on top of that, their upbringings environment upbringing can affect them, I always feel, and I always say, I feel very fortunate that I grow in certain environment. If I have grown in different environment, I don't know how I could be. I might have turned out totally different person. Environment, in what kind of environment you grow, surrounding you affect a lot of persons' thinking, personalities, way of doing things. So sometimes we are not aware that we are fortunate to have certain environment. They are not fortunate. They grow up in different environment. So that have strong impact on their thinking, their action, their behavior, So sometimes we don't know their histories, what kind of background, in what kind of environment they grow, and why that's how that affected them. Yeah. Okay, we'll do the dedications. Yawadi nyoto ta lama sangye do gyo ne do chi kyang ma le pa e sa la Changchu Sen Cho Ben Po Che Ma Ke Pa Na Ke Kyu Chi Ke Wa Nyam Pa Me Pa Yo Kong Me Kong Du Pe Wa Sho. The wish granting, wish fulfilling jewels, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, to the incomparable kind Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. Fearless teachers and assembly of the children, the victorious ones, Sabhagas and Pradeka Buddhas, victorious Losang's father and son, along with their lineage master, all the objects of refuge on infinite land, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice, you hold the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable and venerable Guru, to you I make request. While starting single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teaching, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and for the mother living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessing of the ocean of three jewels and the great wave of Bodhisattva of children of victorious one, may the smile of reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Have a good day. Thank you.
And we're gonna have puja in 15 minutes if you'd like to stay. So we're about to start.
They were drinking.
Oh, yes, thank you.